The research article I'm going to review today has to do with what we all struggle with, including myself, is to create sustainable habits, oftentimes around things that I may not want to do. And for me right now, it's about not engaging in exercise, but how to develop a habit around writing a long form book that I'm working on related to what we discuss in this podcast. And it's a consolidation of work. But the research study that I'm going through, the research article published in December of 2018, is called Exploratory Study of the Impact of Perceived Reward on Habit Formation. And the authors of this study, Gabby Judah, Benjamin Gardner, Michael Kenward, Bianca Destavola, and Robert Unger, argue that, I don't think it's an argument, that they speak to the difficulties of habit formation when the reinforcement isn't positive. And habit formation is really complicated because we tend to form habits around things that we like. And I would personally, this is my personal opinion without any research, that one of the most important things that many of us fail to form a habit around is this toxic word in many cases called exercise. And I know many scientists and doctors and trainers and physical therapists that no longer talk about exercise as exercise, but they call it movement, or they come out with all these different fancy names that are designed to disguise exercise as something that doesn't trigger a stigma in the brain. So if you wanted to form a sustainable habit and you wanted one takeaway from the podcast today, what is it? And we spent a whole term on this in behavioral psychology. Not that that's enough, but obviously we designed our own study around how we could form habits that were sustainable and what our reinforcers were and how we could progress. But at the end of the day, I think for the non-exerciser or for the person that just, as we get into our 40s and 50s, what really triggers us to exercise are generally, in my opinion, threefolds. One, watching our beautiful children grow up and wanting to be with them more frequently than not. Two is, from time to time, we see other people engaged in exercise and we're a little jealous. We want to do what they're doing. And last but not least, and probably most likely, is as we turn 45, many of us get our first colonoscopy. We get that first HDL, LDL report on cholesterol. And doctor says, hey, you need to start moving. But we were never taught how to really move in a manner that's great for our health compared to fitness. Learning to move for health and learning to move for fitness are two completely different agendas. And I will have another podcast on that. Completely different agenda. And I'm just going to summarize why here quickly, and then we can move on to how to form sustainable habits with positive reinforcers. There is a study done by a very well-known scientist. And he found out that, and this is just to me incredible. He found out that people absolutely respond different to exercise. Some people are non-responders. This doesn't give you the right to just say, oh, I'm never going to exercise. No. When we talk about non-responders, we say that they don't respond in a manner of fitness, meaning they may not respond to speed workout in a way that a responder who has been from a genetic line where the dad and the mom were both Olympians and their parents were the Olympians and their parents, grandparents were, most likely they will be responders to VO2 max training or speed workout. Now, most of us will be more along the sedentary bunch as we evolve genetically as a species. Unfortunately, we're not moving more, we're actually moving less, which then means many of us will not respond to the protocols that are designed for us by the fancy trainer, the fancy motivational trainer, and they're going to push us and say, hey, I was the trainer for X baseball team, X basketball team, X elite athlete, X. Well, guess what? That may not be the best trainer for you because they only know how to train non-responders. They only know how to train responders. They don't rarely train non-responders. Every single person in the Olympics is a responder to speed workout training or the stimulus that improves their fitness, not necessarily their health. Do you guys get kind of what I'm saying here? Dr. Bouchard from Quebec has done many studies in this area where they kind of debunk the fact that as long as you train somebody, that person will respond to the training. So false. Okay, so remember, I owe you a podcast regarding the subject. I will put the show notes. I will put this wonderful professor, I think he's 83 now, 84, and his life's work in the show notes so you can reference this, but I will go into details with what they found. This does not give you the right to not exercise. It just says you might not be going to the Olympics if you're not genetically gifted, okay? But you should still exercise plenty to improve your health, lower your cholesterol, improve your HDL. Pardon me, I should never say lower your cholesterol. Let me just say improve your, forgive me, / that. I would love to see that your HDL and your triglyceride and HDL ratio is as low as you can get it on a longitudinal basis. So in other words, measure yourself year to year to year and let 2025 be the year you start to measure, if you haven't already, that your triglyceride divided by your HDL can go lower and lower. This doesn't apply to everyone. This is just a nice marker for us, for me to describe to you what good health could be. And we can go into that nuance later. So I have been observing many of our clients and patients over the last 5 years. And I can tell you with confidence that what this research article describes is 100% true, which is you can't just rely on grit, meaning this intrinsic motivation, and tell people, if you do this, you're going to get better and things are going to change for you because health is everything. And that's why you should do it. And therefore you'll get there. Or if you don't do this, you're not going to be able to walk in the future. Very, there's no positive reinforcement in any of those messages, right? And you can go back to our childhood and or how we raise our children, where we're very specific with rewards, right? Whether it's candy, chocolate, but you do this, we give you positive reward. We give you that, you do that, we give you a positive reward. So how do you give yourself a positive reward? The reward is in health. That is a long-term that's long-term, right? We know that, but that's not going to motivate you to get up in the morning, do a flight of stairs, or take a flight of stairs after you eat lunch, or take a flight of stairs before you eat lunch to become more insulin. How do you avoid that pitfall of short-term intrinsic motivation that falls apart within a few weeks or so? Willpower, delayed benefits, all of them will not save the day for us. So here's a really fun thing that my wife uses. It's incredible. And I did A/B testing on this. On a treadmill, the duration she spends on the treadmill will vary between none to hours, depending on what the reward is. And what do you think the reward for her is on a treadmill? It's not trying to do intense exercise or low intensity exercise with a trainer telling her what to do. Her positive reinforcement is, after an incredible hard day with children, running around, picking them up, dropping them off, taking care of her business, is that she gets to mix exercise, which to her, she's not like me. I'm like an exercise fanatic. And I'll explain to you guys, mainly for psychology, because it makes me feel better. And so I do it almost like medicine. And I have a lot of friends that are like me, where we're completely sober. We don't drink, we don't smoke, we don't do any drugs, but we use exercise kind of like our release. So we do it 2-3 times a day. But for my wife, she's not a big fan of the long run, but she's kind of a fan of the run. But she knows she should run more frequently than not, but sometimes she falls out of habit. So she's attached watching drama series, watching Netflix as her alone time. And she's paired that with treadmill running. It's kind of ingenious because she managed to do that every night. Although in the night we would hear this, which would be a treadmill running at like 10 p.m. But that's when she found time to run, and she found time to be with herself, and in that same time, take a moment to enjoy her favorite TV show and catch up on her own peace of mind. And when the kids were young, they got so used to that treadmill that they would actually sleep on the couch next to the treadmill, and they fell asleep. And that was my wife's way of creating a habit for herself that was sustainable and reinforced by something she really, really loved. Okay. Reinforced by something she really, really loved, which was watching these TV shows that gave her some relief. We moved, got rid of the treadmill, and she knows how to run. She's run 100 miles before. She's a complete athlete. Now, not so much anymore. Now I have to remind her. So her now, the positive reinforcer for now would be more audio driven. So we have a plan now where she'll take longer runs and listen to a podcast or some content, but she will attest and agree with me that the stimulus isn't as strong as watching what's a popular Netflix show or something that she really wants to watch. So the lesson here for all of us is making sure that we really, when we're starting off doing exercise, inherently we really don't want to do it. And you can say, oh, Vic said about non-exercise, like, fidgeting at my desk or taking one flight of stairs and not counting the stairs or just going. All of that is still a habit you have to form. So start with something you really like. And for me, I do it because I'm after the 3 hours of endorphins released in my body, the dopamine release that gives me a sense of peace and gives me the ability to work. And I don't really feel that terrible exercising. I feel great. So to me, the reward is there. But I can tell you 15 years ago, when I did not have that habit, 16 years ago, what is it, 2025? 16 years ago, how I became a runner was that I realized I would always put on music, and I would there was a mountain behind my house, and I would climb that mountain. And every time I climbed that mountain, I would listen to a specific music. And that music kind of was my reward. And when the music wasn't there, it was very hard for me to do it. But my reward, and I remember this clearly, was I would eat something that wasn't probably great for me, but I gave myself permission to eat this after I did it. And that was my reward. And it was something I really liked. It was this snack. It was sweet, obviously. And then over the years, I relied less on reinforcers because the benefit of exercise started to outpace the need for a reinforcement. The other thing when I started to run fast or learn to run fast, running fast sucks. It sucks. It's painful. It hurts. It's terrible. It's the worst thing on planet Earth. And I'm a trail runner, and most trail runners, I think, I'll speak for myself. I hate running fast. But there's always this carrot dangling there, like, well, if you run fast, then you can have the association of a fast runner. And when you're younger, in your 30s, you want that association. So you're willing to suffer for it. But it's easier to suffer with other people. So I joined this running group, where we all suffer together on Tuesday nights in Santa Monica. And that made the suffering more peaceful. So another reinforcer you can have is do this activity with people you really like and create a mini community around this one bout of exercise a day, 2 bouts, 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, half an hour. It could be digital, it could be in person, it could be virtual. And we know for fact that weekly check-ins improves adherence rate for all exercise by a very large amount. I'm not going to quote the exact percentage, but it's a lot. So make sure you find your reinforcer before you go out and develop that habit. And maybe do it with your husband in the beginning. Do it with your kids. Make it something that You're like, hey, if I'm going out and doing exercise and bring my kid, the reward is my kid gets healthier too. But start with yourself. I think starting with yourself and finding that positive reinforcer for yourself that you can sustain and build habits around that reinforcer is really critical. And enjoy the process of just saying, I checked it off today. So, I would get journaling is a remarkable tool. For those of us who do it, it's a remarkable tool. So even if you go out and your visual cue is, I am going to move 1 minute after lunch every day. So the cue is lunch. You take the cue. The reinforcer after lunch could be during lunch, I allow myself to do whatever I want on the iPhone and go through any social media I want, or listen to my favorite music, or watch a video, or order something. I get to buy one thing a day under $5 on Amazon or something like that. That's a strong reinforcer. Give yourself that permission, and then check off on your journal. Day 1 complete. 2, 3. After several weeks of $5 investments, in your case on Amazon, you'll start to see that you will turn conscious movement to unconscious movement, where moving that minute or 2 or 3 minutes after lunch no longer becomes a thought process. You just do it. And that's the holy grail. And once you establish that foundation, oh my goodness, we can build so much after that. But all of this takes time. But guess what? We all have a little bit of time here. So I hope that you're able to take some benefit from this podcast, and I will put all of the journals in the show notes. Have a great Sunday. Get out, move a little bit, find someone to move with, reward yourself after you move. Have a wonderful day.